Welcome back to class, dear students. In this lesson, we will be looking at CSS3, then which will lead us to animation, transition, and as we also continue to discuss about responsive design, which is utmost in your journey as a Web3 front-end developer. Now, just like what is CSS3, similar to when you now have the understanding when you say HTML5. So it's just a version, nothing in kind of special like CSS is separate and then there's CSS3. Just like there's no HTML separate than HTML. No, HTML5 we have learned about as just the latest. So CSS3 is also like the latest major version that changed a lot about CSS. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet Level 3, which is the latest iteration used in web design and development. So CSS3 is a powerful tool for web designer and developer, offering a range of new features and improvements over previous version to enhance the look and interactivity of web pages. So here are what makes CSS significant. CSS3 significant. So like I told you, it's just like you have Android 10, Android 13. That I don't know, by the time you'll be watching, could have been Android 30 or something. So, but now I think something around 13, 14 or so. So it doesn't make it different from Android. It's just new model and all those things. So the same is when you talk about CSS3. So it is just a new version that try to adjust and integrate and introduce new features to improve CSS as we knew it before. So some of the significant changes is modularity. CSS is split into modules, making the specification easier to update and allow browser to support more recent features. Because one of the issues with some of these languages is that at times when they are rolling out new features, it takes a longer time because they need to test, they need to make sure it's not breaking things and things like that. So sometimes to use new version, you need to add some specific things for the browser to be able to read it and things like that. So making it modular means they can just be adjusting some aspects without touching others, and then with time, browser and things get adapted to it. Then advanced selector with CS3 DYOR can use more sophisticated selectors that allow for greater flexibility and specificity when styling elements. You have seen that selector is a major part of CSS, which is selector and declaration. So the selector is how do you pick the HTML element to style. So it really improve and introduce some of the advanced selector we are using. Then we have visual effect. CSS include, that's number 3, a wide range of visual effects like box shadow, text shadow, round corner, gradient. We used gradient already here. That's the color, mixing the background with different colors. You can see it from dark to lighter or something like that. So that's gradient from the previous lesson. So we've used that. If you are not, you check it. So all those things becomes more easy and makes things more, and image that were not possible with CS2 unless images or JavaScript were used. So border and a lot of things like that. Then, like I told you, this CS3, went into take some things from HTML and JavaScript so that it's like we should be able to get this done purely with CSS instead of relying on HTML or JavaScript. So it's like a bridge. Apart from just styling, it's doing a lot of things like those pseudo and all those things we've seen, we still discuss, that you can see it that you are able to put in elements without actually using HTML. That's how we are able to introduce this in the previous one, this under the main title, the tagline, without actually putting it in our HTML. So all those things were introduced with Web3, CSS3, sorry. Then animation and transition. It introduced the ability to create animation and transition without relying on scripting language like Java. So this is another thing. You can animate things, you can create transition and all those things like that. Multiple background, like gradient, like we said. Repeat, 3D, 2D. A lot of things like that can now be used purely with CSS. Responsive design, like the media query and all those things, makes things, you see it, we can say, okay, if this design, we did it from the previous lesson, if this design is like mobile 767 pixel below, it should be this color. You see, when it's lower to a level, it should be another color. When is this again, it changes color. You understand things like that. So then flexible grid and layout. So we've talked about flexbox, grid, we've used them as well in previous lesson. Then custom fonts, so let's make it easier to use variety of font through font phase rule and things like that. CSS3 play a crucial role in modern web design, allowing developers to build more responsive, dynamic, and visual appealing websites. It works in conjunction with HTML5 and JavaScript to create the sophisticated web experience that users expect today. So what CSS animation? CSS animation make it possible to animate transition from one CSS style convention to another. Transition provide a way to control animation and speed when changing CSS. As usual, we still check our practical code. So animation was introduced as a way to animate HTML element without actually using JavaScript to handle the animation process, like I've said. Then it also aids responsive design, like the media query, the flexbox, all those things. Makes design more flexible and adaptable to different screen size, which in turn increase user experience. So implementing it, let's just see this existing code we have here, then the enhancement. You can see how do you use animation. You use what is called keyframe. Then you have different features like pause, animate, and a lot of other things like that. So transform in 50%, like the timing. So and things like that. Then you can animate like button animation, pause 2 seconds, infinite. Infinite means it should be continuous. Like I told you, all these things now, you don't need to bother to keep them in your head. Just, I need animation. Just have the basic, we are taking you through in these lessons. Like, you can use animation in CSS. Then ask this AI to give you then you can now tell them, adjust it, then you get things faster. Don't need to have all this over color. You can see transition, and over media query, we have learned that. So that's here now the full code that we should have. Let's try and see it in action. I always like to see what we are doing. Here we have the CSS. If I clean this up, save, it's back to normal. Then we apply, then we save. So we have the HTML, So you can see it now. Once you copy that, I think the major thing we did here was to introduce inside the button. Where is the button? Yeah, a class. You remember we have done class, a class. Then when you want to call it, you do dot button. So let's go here. Just look for it. You say dot button. Then we can introduce animation. So there's a keyword for it, animation. Then we can pause, 2 seconds, and infinite. So we can make it to not be infinite. You just change those things here. You understand? So like I said, you can always just say and tell things like Copilot or whatever AI you are using there to explain this. So just tell it to explain whatever it is. You see, it's a rule meant with last. The animation property is shorthand. You see, it gives a lot about this refer to asset with the name pause. The keyframe will control the intermediate step in CSS. So, and if you notice, did you notice that this is not animating? It's like move, go, like a pop out. So you can see it now. If I widen it a bit, let's see. Let's see it. So this is now being animated, and if we look at this, when we over A, he said you should change it to color, and then for A, it should transition. You know, when you over it, it changes the color, and you should know A now, which is anchor tag for link. But he said instead of just changing, I'm coming. Let's see this. Let me move this a bit. This is what I want you to see. Look here. See, it was so sharp. Like, click, go to it. Click, go to it. You see how like this thing is going in, but look at this, just straight away. So that's what this animation is doing. Transition. Sorry. Now observe it, how it will do. This is it. That even when I go, it doesn't just sharply go, because we are now controlling the transition, that it should slow down. Transition is how the movement between one animation and the other, or change from one color to the other. So you can make that transition to be more real, because most time it's not real. You just see it, you see gradually. So you can see it now gradually. You see it, you can see the transition. So if I increase this now, you see, you know, because I increased the seconds, so it will be much faster. What about 1 second? Let's see. See, you know, all these things happen in seconds, but if you, it might be a bit harder to. So you can see it now. So that's how you use animation and the transition. Right? You can see like an animation there and transition as well. So transform the pause key and things like that. So you can see this pause, we define it here, then we give it time, and then this. So that's the major thing for this lesson as well. We have seen how, similar to HTML5, how CSS3 change CSS forever as we knew it, and can just do some things that HTML ought to do, or do some things that JavaScript ought to do. But in any of those cases, always make sure you know what you're doing. So like I said, where you need to HTML to create content, please don't use CSS. especially when you are concerned about ranking, SEO, or crawling, either AI tool crawling or like Google search, research, and some other things like that. You need to know. So not every of these features suit depending on your use case. That's it for this lesson. And remember, the resources are there to help you learn more. Like if you go here now and the sequencing, you can sequence animation, all those things are there to really help. And if you need support, remember, post in the comments specific to that lesson. Join the Discord to connect with other DPU, Web3 developer, and a lot of other opportunity updates from the platform as well. But when you need specific support for these courses and their lesson, you ask in that specific lesson and don't repeat what others have asked. If they have asked, you can just comment, oh, this solution was helpful, so others know it's still helpful, but not repeating it. So that's guaranteed to get support from the author of the course. That's it for this video. I will see you in the next. I remain Solomon Foske of the Programming University. Keep the programming spirit high and alive, and please always do good to humanity and nature with your knowledge and programming skill are not evil, to make the world a better place for us all. See you. Peace.